too much, because if you feel that your right or my right of expression is limiting your right in terms of is infringing in your right by maybe you find that there's a statement by a blogger or an online tweet which you find defamatory, there are avenues of trying to seek that remedy. So it does not in any way justify the reaction by the government, the Kenya Kwanza government, of abducting the young people. So despite the fact that this right is qualified or it has limitations, it doesn't give the government the autonomy to abduct, to misuse the law and go against the law, because even those who contravene the Constitution, there are mechanisms of seeking remedy, and one of the mechanisms is taking someone to court, have them charged. There are various crimes which they can commit under the law. If you have incited people to cause chaos, or you have incited people to cause hatred because of tribe, or you have used your statements to incite violence or to incite propaganda for war. So there are avenues for addressing this issue. But unfortunately,
and they have to be specific about the issue.
Yes, they have to be specific of what you have violated. And I think these are some of the reasons why even the court, I think in Nakuru sometimes back, when it was declaring section 77 of the Penal Code about the issue of tweeting and spreading propagandas, it has to be very specific on which contravention in terms of the Constitution under section under Article 33, which limitation has it violated.
Right.
So whatever I have tweeted, whatever I've shared with people, whatever I've uttered, how has it contravened the Constitution? And therefore the government can hold me accountable by taking me to court, because there is a system for you to be charged and held accountable. But when now you find that unmasked people who are moving with vehicles which don't have plates pick you up in the middle of the night and hold you in some different county or in a forest and then release you after almost a month, that does not in any way justify now limiting the right of freedom of expression. So it is very important for us to also appreciate the reaction by the government and also the duty by the government, which is the most our ultimate duty bearer.
Okay. Hanifa, now we asked our audience, again I'll pose it to both of you, do you believe they limit the right of the freedom of expression, or is it an absolute right? What do you believe in this scenario?
Thank you. First things first, the freedom of expression is not a privilege granted by the state, like the lawyer has explained. It is an absolute right guaranteed by the Constitution. So are there limits to the rights of freedom? Like any other rights, there are obviously boundaries and limits, but the limits are also there to protect the very same rights and not to suppress them, like what the government is trying to do. So I think the government is out there with a desire to stifle dissent instead of just trying to solve things. So I found it laughable, by the way, when the Ministry of Interior came out with a statement saying that misinformation and what we are doing on social media is...
People will be found culpable.
Yes, they are undermining the credibility of the government. And honestly, if there's anyone here who is doing a really perfect job at, undermining their credibility, is the government itself. By misappropriation of public resources, corruption. So they're doing this themselves. We are not the ones who are undermining their credibility. So honestly, this government is out here to attack us in all forms, So there are boundaries, of course, to the freedom of expression. Like he pointed out, there may be hate speech or ethnic clashes or incitements, which that is not what we're doing. That is not what is happening currently.
What is happening in your definition?
What is happening is we're demanding for accountability. So social media has really given us a good platform to demand for accountability, and that is what we have been doing actively for the past 7 months. So no one can come out and try to, delegitimize this for us. you know, especially if we were very peaceful from the beginning. This whole thing started as us being peaceful, and we were taken off the streets, and I think this is a form of protest. So they don't want us on the streets, and we created our way of, you know, trying to demand for accountability in the long run.
Right.
So what we're doing is demanding for accountability. The AI images they keep complaining of, or the deep fakes, and everything they're complaining of, it is within our rights, honestly. And the coffins, if I may be specific, they keep complaining about it. All they do is go out there and talk about us. I don't know, when do they work? All they do is this, they're just out there talking about us. So it is within our rights. So there's no hate speech, neither are we inciting violence or anything else. That would be the boundary or the limits of freedom of expression.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Muthiora, let's also take a look at the aspect where the Interior Ministry has directed all social media, handlers for that matter, owners, to establish offices in Kenya so that, they can regulate what's on social media. Like she mentioned, the AI images, specifically those of, you've seen the president and other leaders in coffins and the like, which the government and many of the leaders are saying that it is uncouth and parents should teach their children manners. What's your perspective on that?
Well, first, let us have everyone understand that it is wrong for the crop of leaders we have in Kenya today to point fingers at Kenya's parents today that they have failed, because we know who they are, we know who their children are, and we can tell that they themselves cannot be on a pedestal to tell others how they should bring up their children.
Right.
If it's respect they want, they should earn it. And Kenyans have entrusted them with a mandate to deliver to them services and goods as they had promised they would. So if it's about respect, that's not demanded by our law or constitution. And that's where most of them base their argument on. Now, in terms of freedom of expression, as the law is today, there are limits, but we know that the law can be improved over time. And sometimes when we have repression, like we are currently experiencing in Kenya today, it can be interpreted to favor the ruling class. You recall there was a time in this country where it was an offense punishable by death to even imagine that the president can die. Some people sat down and came up with such a law. It was not a good law, which is why right now the constitution we have cannot support such a law. So even the laws that we currently have, they are works in progress, and I'm sure there are cases in court that will help us to properly understand what these limits really mean. But then within the context we find ourselves today, what are Kenyans asking for? It's good governance and accountability, period. Have they in any way incited hate? I don't think so. Have they incited violence? We've not seen any. If anything, it's the government that has been out there meting out violence. But when you look at Kenyans, they are peaceful, they are united, and right now all they're saying is this government has failed in its mandate to govern.
Okay.
And they insist every time that Ruto must go, which is why officials, starting with those at the very top, go nuts, because they cannot control the people anymore, because the level of awareness is not where they expected it would be, where they would manipulate things in their favor. So I totally oppose anyone that seeks to point fingers at Kenyans' parents and tell them that they've not brought up their children well. And in fact, on that note, you recall when this was being said out there, one of the parents, a top official in government, had their child do business in a way that is against the law, let alone whatever social media posts that other Kenyans' children were making. For them, they were in contravention of the law. And what have they done to their children? We're yet to know. So they have no right to point fingers at Kenyans' parents that they have failed in their duty as parents.
Right. Now, Stephen, I would like you to elaborate a very pertinent issue. Now, we know that the Constitution is supreme. And when we're looking at the aspect of leaders saying, you know, children should be taught manners, or the morality aspect, it begs me to come back to the Constitution so that we can look at the legal framework. And then we're asking now, where is it in the Constitution that a leader should be respected and disrespect is actually a crime? Is it espoused anywhere so that we can have a legal direction on this?
Thank you very much. I think what these politicians are not, what they don't want to absorb is being held accountable. And there's nothing to do with respect, because as Muthiora has mentioned, respect begets respect. You want the youth to respect you, you have to ensure that their education is accessible, affordable, and of quality. You want the parents to respect you, you have to respect, to ensure that healthcare is accessible and affordable and in the right way. So the moment you are stealing the money for the healthcare, you're stealing money, you're making education difficult, people have to do fundraisers, you are making life difficult, then you are killing young people in the streets, and yet we are calling ourselves democracy. Whenever people are holding the government accountable, they are shot, they are abducted, then I don't think these politicians are being honest, because there is no provision of the law that address the issue of such kind of morality as they perceive it. Instead, what they are demanding for is people to keep quiet and praise them the way they used to do for Nyayo. You line up from here to Nakuru, clapping, children from all schools walk and clap for the president, dance for him, make songs for them. Those eras, they need to know, are long gone. We don't praise you, we respect you. And the respect depends on how you respect the people. How do you respect the people? By ensuring that the job you have been given, which you are holding in trust, and the social contract that you have with the people, which is to deliver your mandate and them to pay their taxes. That is very easy, easy peasy. But unfortunately, the Kenya Kwanza regime has ensured that it doesn't comply with the law. It doesn't respect the law, it doesn't provide for its people, doesn't fulfill its mandate, then demands the people to keep quiet. And we agree, they have managed to buy the opposition. They have the money to buy so many other people, but they can't buy everyone. And that's the problem they are having with absorbing the criticism, because a wise person listens to what your critics are saying, then you rectify. Because if right now, the students at the university and college level and the parents who have children at those levels, when they were complaining about the funding model, if the government just listened, nobody would talk about it. Listen, hear their views, incorporate them in the whole affairs and ensure that education is accessible, nobody will talk about it. If SHA is working, the government will not be spending so much money trying to advertise it is working. They even tried yesterday, trying to do a press statement to persuade Kenyans that it is working. Unfortunately, Kenyans had to walk all the way from Kenyatta National Hospital to SHA building to prove to them that this thing is not working. So when Kenyans are telling you it is not working, your work is not to shut them up and demand them to praise you and clap for you and sing for you. Your work is to listen, because leadership is servanthood, and servanthood is listening. You listen, understand the problem, then find a solution. That's why they have entrusted you with the job. But the kind of guys we have are entitled people who unfortunately benefited from free things, free education, free healthcare, boom in universities. Now they have the money, they got the jobs. Now they have ensured that they have killed all the companies. Now corporations are moving out of the country. Youth don't have a job, and they demand respect. There's no youth who can respect you when 700,000 young people, after the last KCSE result, don't have a placement in college and university, are going to go back to the village and stay home. So they are waiting for handouts. They will never respect you. They can't respect you. So you can't create a job for them. You can't create an opportunity for them in school. Don't expect respect. And that is what our elders need to understand. That the kind of generation that is there today, you're going to have to ensure that you do your job. They know the social contract. they know the principles of your contract, and they know what you're supposed to do as a leader, and them, they are doing what they're supposed to do as citizens. So it is your work as a leader to persuade them to praise you, not to demand them to praise you. And how do you persuade them to praise you? By doing what is supposed to be done. When you abduct someone and take them for almost a month, and their parents can't even enjoy the Christmas or the New Year festivities, and then from nowhere the head of state, along pressure, decide to claim that they're going to end abduction and release a few people, automatically the people are wondering, if the state, which has a duty to protect us, can't do so, then what kind of respect are you demanding? I've been seeing Kenyans in the social media even fighting the police and demanding not to be arrested. Why? Because even the police, despite the fact that they have a police order and they have the constitution, which give them rules on how to engage citizens during arrest, and even and how the mechanisms and how you're supposed to dress, how you're supposed to identify yourself, they don't do that. Then expect we're going to treat them, they can't treat them right. So what they are arguing or they're pushing for has no basis in law.
Right.
And I think it's high time Kenyans are awake, and that is what the current crop of leaders have not yet absorbed. I think they haven't understood what really transpired since last year.
Okay, now before I come to you, Hanifa and Muthiora, for your sentiments on the same, we're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. Do stay with us.
Na raundi hii January tuna survive na maringos, manjoti, mabite, mapopcorns. Odibets up. Very nice. Very nice.
Skuman January na Odibets. Wekelea kwa Odibets app upate za kupiga January. Odibets, very nice.
People Daily, Kenya's trusted newspaper, is making history as the first daily to go fully digital. By transitioning from print to the PD News app, we are delivering the same exceptional journalism you've relied on for years in a completely new way to experience it. It's news for today and the future. No paper, no waste. Just real-time updates and customizable stories. This is a leap towards innovation, sustainability, and a better experience for you, our reader. Download the PD app now on Play Store and App Store. People Daily. News that moves with you.
Angukia welcome bonus. Only on Mozart. Karibishwa kama mgeni. Register now on mozartbet.co.ke to angukia free bets and a free spins bonanza. Kuwa mshindi. Mozartbet.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. We are speaking about the freedom of expression. What are the limits to it? And in studio, I have with us, of course, our amazing guests who've been able to elaborate this particular aspect, Muthiora, Hanifa, and Stephen, who are here to elaborate this particular conversation. Now, before we went on a break, Hanifa, of course, Stephen here was explaining to us whether it is enshrined in the Constitution, if it is okay or right to disrespect or respect a leader. Where is it in the Constitution? It clearly says there is nothing like that. But years ago, we saw President Uhuru Kenyatta saying he had to leave, Twitter, specifically X, because of so many insults. And then just literally last year, Raila Odinga was telling the president, listen, this space is usually like this. If you cannot take the heat, then leave. You're someone who has been on both ends of this heat, both ends. There are days you have the love. There are days, there are people who are backing you because of the online activism, especially, your rise came through the protest and the like, and your participation. And then there are those who are like, Hanifa, you're a traitor. And then the next day they love you and the like. So explain to us this space, what you have learned and what one needs to understand, especially when they are taking their route to be as vocal, as you are, or as you've been, recently.
Yes, thank you. One thing you have to be, especially if you're in the public domain, you have to have a thick skin. Honestly, all sorts of things will come your way. Slander, intimidation, everything. Literally everyone who is in the public domain, especially the duty bearers, should be able to understand this. Very simple fact. Yes, I have been, I've experienced a lot of sites on social media, especially Twitter. I've been vocal on Twitter for so many years now, and it's just blew up last year.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been vocal for so many years, and I'm genuinely so proud of my generation. I'm proud of Kenyans as a whole. I'm proud of everyone. I'm proud of what we are doing currently with the social media and everything. So they should be able to take this. Like you said, Uhuru Kenyatta left Twitter. So I was like, no, I can't take this, and then he left.
He said he couldn't sleep.
If Ruto and his other minions, so I'm sorry, cannot handle what Twitter has, because basically what they can't handle is accountability. Being asked for accountability is what they can't handle. Should quit Twitter and go work. Quit and go work like what Uhuru did. You can't come here and whine and teach us what to do, or teach us how we should demand for accountability. Like you said, respect begets respect. That is not what Farah Maalim did just the other day, you know, in front of the president himself. He said words I can't even say. Yeah. These are the people demanding respect from us. So they should be able to bear whatever is going on by all means. They should be able to bear it. What we are simply doing is demanding for accountability, nothing else. This is a form of protest, and I'm so proud of everyone. Everyone is doing everything in their own space to demand for accountability, to, you know, want to reform this country in their own ways.
Right.
So they have no moral authority at all to question any one of us. No, zero. So you either take the hit, you know, do your work, you know, take responsibility and stop whining every day. They just keep whining about us, you know, the machinani. Do your work and stop whining. If you cannot handle the heat, quit. Quit trying to, you know, fight with the youths you haven't created jobs for. Youths you're asking to go. We are hungry, unemployed. We have time, by the way. We are hungry, unemployed, angry youths. Time is what we have, and we will give you what you want. So you cannot win this digital war with us. Yeah, in the streets maybe. The government is just angry that they can't tear gas us or, you know, shoot at us online, because that is what they're used to. So if you cannot handle it, quit. Stop whining and go work.
All right. Okay, Muthiora, I'll ask you the same. What's your perspective on that? Especially what I asked you this once before while you were here. Yeah. What do most people need to understand, actually the leaders, about the current times you are living in? I mean, we saw, you know, President Yoweri Museveni of Uganda, you know, having statements on the AI images, and yet he saw how Kenyans reacted with having an AI image of himself. Yes, online. Okay, so what is it that we need to understand the tone? Because it is understood, but some young people are saying, if it's not clear, we'll continue making it clear. What is this thing?
The fact that those who have been entrusted with responsibility have abdicated that responsibility. All that the people want, and especially the young Kenyans today, is just get it done. We gave you a job, we want you to deliver. If you don't, we know what your job description is, we know what the results should look like. So as long as we are not seeing the results that we've been paying you to deliver, we'll keep reminding you, we will come at you, and if possible, we will use all means to get you out of that office. That's something that those in government today need to accept, that the generation that has come of age today knows what the law is. They have read and understood the Constitution. They have gone a step further. They've tried to break it down to those who can't. So the level of awareness in the country today is not what it used to be. So it's very difficult to hoodwink people on the same scale that politicians were doing it before. So as long as you're not ready to get it done, prepare for war. And every time you think you've pinned them down, they come back 10 times stronger because they are innovative. They will not use the same channels that have failed before. Uhuru Kenyatta went under a barrage of attacks because he reneged on his promises to the people and he was pinned down. He had to quit. Now, William Ruto has a generation that learned from that experience then that worked against Uhuru Kenyatta. You can be sure this is a war he will not win. So he has just one job, and that is to get it done. He made promises to the people. He's taxing us more than we've ever been taxed. KRA has confirmed that revenue collections are higher than they have ever been. Our president, people have said that they've said a thief, and they didn't mind that he would ascend to the presidency because he would help to catch other thieves, because people assume that these are the people he hangs out with, so it wouldn't be so hard for him to catch them. So they expected that he would be effective in stopping corruption. Corruption has skyrocketed while he has been in office. So that's again another thing he has failed to do. Our health sector was not the best that it can be, but at least things were working. He has broken that down. You go to manufacturing, it is shrinking even more as compared to the regime he was pointing fingers at. So Kenyans are not going to relent. Kenyans are only going to increase the pressure they have been applying. During the last regime, Kenyans were doing the same thing they are doing now. Why the intensity has increased is because the pain on the people is more now than it was then. So if they want for things to change, let them deliver on the job that they were given. And let's not compare ourselves to a country like Uganda. I remember there was a time when one of their leaders said that in this country, we can guarantee you the freedom of speech, but we cannot guarantee you freedom after the speech. That's not the jurisdiction we live in today. As long as I'm not inciting hate or violence, I know I'm protected. And the people using social media today know what the law says. So they will not necessarily break the law, but they will bend it to make sure that you get the message they're trying to get to you. And this will continue to happen.
All right. Now, Stephen, we need to look at now the aspect of abductions. And now that we have the forceful disappearances or abductions, who bears the ultimate responsibility? Is it the president? Is it the NIS? Is it the security, bodies? Who exactly here bears that responsibility?
The buck stops with the head of the executive. I know the response from the president will be, these are independent departments, the police is an independent unit, the NIS a dependent, all those shenanigans. But we know very well that from the information which has been out there, that the head of state has had a lot of influence in this matter. And I'm saying this because he has a duty to order otherwise.
So how do we interpret, just before you continue, as you're on that note, C.S. Muturi's narration of the events that happened while his son was kidnapped, and his account to the DCI, that he was in government, he still is in government, and he's a member of the National Security Council, who had no idea, that's a very high information of intelligence. So he had no idea that his son had been abducted until he was told. And even when he made the call, there were still different accounts of the matter, right, until the president made the call. So what are we exactly supposed to understand from this scenario?
I think The statement by CS Muturi was a clear confirmation of what you had asked earlier on who is commanding this. And I think him having the benefit of sitting in such high level in terms of security of this country and the proximity he has to the president and the fact that he took it to the press because it's a matter of general knowledge and he told us that he called the head of state. He's the one who gave a direct order for their son to be released. It is a confirmation on what Rigathi Gachagua had mentioned some few weeks ago on who is commanding this team and whom they're reporting to. So what I would like to mention is the point that even as it may, it is important that the head of state and the security agents understand of something we call command responsibility. That
yes, which was mentioned during the...
Yeah. So that if you are giving a command and you're the one in charge of commanding a unit and they have committed an offense or they have done something which is illegal, they have killed people, they have abducted people, they have used excessive force to manage the protest, or you have not commanded them to stop doing those things which are going contrary to the law. You are held accountable, and that is why you find even the Rome Statute is there, and the International Crimes Act in Kenya, which ratifies the Rome Statute, is there, such that you are held accountable as the commanding officer for doing, that is, giving the order to abduct, or giving the order to use excessive force, giving the order to use to cause to kill, extrajudicial killing, or you also held accountable for not giving an order to stop, because you have the power to give an order to stop. And that is why I mentioned about the social contract. This social contract, we enter with the government every single time we go to an election cycle, that the people have given the government the mandate, go and serve us. You want to, as a member of parliament, as an MCA, as a governor, as a senator, as a president, we have given you the powers, all the instruments of power to go and run the government. In return, we are expecting you to provide security. We are expecting you to do all those policies and all those duties which have been enshrined in the Constitution. So the moment Kenyans disappear and the person in charge who has been given a constitutional duty to be in charge of the police docket takes it to the press and declare that they don't know where you are, it clearly means that the person who gave the job, they're not doing it. So they're not doing the job of protecting Kenyans. So if they can't protect Kenyans, then they should vacate the job. But unfortunately, the system we have in this country, we promote those kind of people. And I saw, instead of even addressing the issues which people have been raising, some of these people have been done reshuffles, promoted, taken to another department, but we don't address the real issue of how did you behave or conduct yourself when you are holding a particular docket. When you are in charge of the police in Nairobi and people are being killed, a court in Malindi gave an order to stop excessive use of force, to stop use of water cannons, the use of bullets towards peaceful protesters. Yet, as a commanding officer, you proceeded to either give an order to your juniors to use the excessive force, or you never gave an order for them to stop using the excessive force. Then you should be held accountable. But unfortunately, that is the part that for the longest time we have not been holding people accountable. But I think people need to understand, and I think the leaders in Kenya Kwanza need to appreciate that the Kenyans are awake. And that's why I think even the Fufua ICC has been trending, because Kenyans are trying to remember going back to what really led to the post-election violence and how crimes against humanity were committed in this country and all those atrocities were committed. And the same thing that we have allowed the police to continue using excessive force and power against the people, but we're not holding anyone accountable. So it is time that the commanding officer, either for giving an order to kill Kenyans or for giving an order not to kill Kenyans, should be held accountable.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
And maybe I just add something. You asked, who does the buck stop with?
Yes, at the end of the day.
I want to use the information that's already in the public domain. Emeritus Attorney General J.B. Muturi said that when his son was abducted and he reached out to the president gave an order.
Yes.
And his son was released. A couple of days ago, the president, while in Homa Bay, told Kenyans that he was going to stop the abductions. And a few days later, those who had been abducted were released, and the appetite for abducting Kenyans went down. So, given this information, why should we fear to call out the person that is causing these abductions as being the head of state? Because he had the power to have someone that had been abducted released. When cornered by pressure by the public, he promised to stop abductions, and they stopped. So it's him. If he wants the abductions to continue, it's all in his hands.
All right.
And unless we call him out openly, they will not stop. Right now, there is an investigation going on with regard to abductions, and the courts have ordered that the police get to the bottom of the matter. Today, I spent a good chunk of my time at the DCI headquarters. They needed information with regard to a missing person. And I can tell you, to begin with, there is the Longton brothers and Bob Njagi, the Kitengela Three. Since they were released, the police have not made any effort to establish who had abducted them. What does that tell you? Now, my experience today at the DCI was that the process was rushed because they have not deployed sufficient resources to establish the facts, or rather to get to the bottom of this matter, because it's not in their interest, because they already know who is doing what, and that it will not yield any results that will move this nation forward.
I see. We need to wind up with Muthiora, though. We have very few minutes. I'll still give you a chance to, have your final comments. I'd also like to get Hanifa's perspective. And Stephen, while we're at this, we need to look at international law, especially when it comes to abduction and political refugees, because Kenya is part of the Refugee Act, 1951. So Hanifa, what's your perspective on this?
I think the government is having fun playing with our intelligence every day. And this started when they arrested the main suspect linked to the Kware massacre. And it's very laughable that this main suspect was arrested and then he escaped. He was the only one that escaped. So it's been very obvious that they're always trying to do things to play with our minds. So if the government, the officers always come out every time to say that they are not the ones abducting people, it means that there is a parallel force or authority that is doing that. So there's no way on this earth that people are being abducted every single day and the government is not aware. So if they say they're not the ones abducting people, so who is? They're always we are left with so many questions every single day. And CS Muturi revealed a lot. And like my colleagues have said, it all leads to one person, the head of state. So he is the one making these commands. There's no way the rest are acting on their own, you see. And he mentioned NIS. Okay. And the DCI. So
right.
It all goes back to them, and they should be prosecuted and arrested. I don't know, these people need to pay, honestly. We cannot keep being violated, killed and maimed and we just move on.
Right.
They need to pay.
Okay, Hanifa, thank you for that. Now, we need to wind up, ladies and gentlemen. I don't like this part because I feel like there's so much, we need to elaborate on this conversation. But Stephen, the 1951 Refugee Convention prohibits the expulsion or return of refugees to countries where they face threats to their life or freedom. Kenya is the third largest UN hub in the world, right? So, for example, given the Turkish nationals who were expatriated back to their country, they had, IDs to show that they're political refugees, right? And then we had, of course, what happened to Maria, the Tanzanian activist, last year, Besigye, and some years ago, there's a South Sudanese national who went back to his country. He also got killed. He died. And 4 years ago, we've had a lot of those political refugees either, being abducted or they end up dead, one of those. So what's your perspective on this, and what is the implication when it comes to, Kenya flouting international law in this particular regard?
According to the Kenyan law, that is the Constitution of Kenya, and at Article 2, we have recognized international law as part of Kenyan law.
Right.
And that is why all the conventions and treaties which have been ratified form part of the Kenyan law, and also those international customs. And one of the law that, as you mentioned, is the Convention on Refugee, that you cannot return a refugee to a place where they are fearing persecution. So the moment, and that it is an unfrontier, you cannot send someone back, even at the border, if they have run away from their country because of fear of persecution, and there is real fear, and they have been able to meet the criteria based on the provisions of the law, then as a country, we have a duty, a legal duty to protect them and provide care for them.
So what happens when it's flouted?
So these are issues which can be litigated in the international international court, the international court, ICJ, Court of Justice. Because the moment you're sending someone back and they were running away because of fear of persecution, automatically they are risking persecution. They are risking losing their lives. And when the Kenyan government was trying to shout around that they were not involved in Besigye's abduction, the Ugandan state government was in the media saying that we were assisted by the Kenyan authority. We cannot just come into Kenya and pick our person without the support of the Kenyan. So we are in a space where we have a leadership which has disregarded the Constitution. And it is so unfortunate because, and I think this goes back to the history, because in 2010, William Samoei Ruto led the country in voting against the Constitution. So he never believed in this Constitution. He never believed in it. That's why he lobbied the church, lied to the church, manipulated them to be able to vote against the Constitution on clauses which were not there. And that explains why even the government of Kenya Kwanza does not respect the law. That's why they would abduct someone, send them back, abduct lawyers who have fled because of persecution, abduct citizens from other nations and send them back to where they are running from persecution. So it's clear, and the same reason why they are killing their own children in the streets for protesting. And I think Ibrahim Traore mentioned that in Ghana by saying that a country prides itself on democracy, but is killing its own children.
Okay. I want to appreciate all of you for coming in. I know Muthiora had a lot more to say, but we'll be having this conversation, again, of course, to elaborate the matters which we have not been able to exhaust during this conversation. I want to thank you all for coming in today.
There is just one thing I would like to add to the question you had posed, and that is with regard to Article 7 of the Rome Statute, the kind of widespread abductions we are seeing in Kenya, which is systemic. We are required to explore the possibility of filing a case at the International Criminal Court because they qualify as prosecutable instances.
Right. Thank you so much.
Senator Okiya Omtata is working on that.
I see.
Soon a matter will be fielded at the ICC so that those responsible can be held accountable. Okay, we'll be having that conversation. Thank you once again all for coming in today. Right, so our guests tonight for this conversation have been Hanifa Aden. She's an activist. Thank you so much for coming. Muthiora Kariara, former deputy presidential candidate, and Stephen Mbugua, LSK council member. Thank you all. We appreciate you being part of this conversation. In just a bit, we'll be having the sports news, and of course, we'll be looking at your responses to our question of the day. Do stay with us.
K24 Sports News, powered by Mozart Bet.
Angukia welcome bonus. Only on Mozart. Karibishwa kama mgeni. Register now on mozartbet.co.ke to angukia free bets and a free spins bonanza. Kuwa mshindi. Mozartbet.
Let's take a look at the sports news. Now, world 10,000 meters silver medalist Daniel Ebenyo-Simiyu and Sheila Chelagat are the champions of the 13th edition of the Kenya Police Cross Country Championships held in Ngong Racecourse, Nairobi. Ivy Terry followed the action and files the following report.
Police cross-country championships held at the Ngong Racecourse attracted the country's top athletes ahead of the national championships scheduled for February in Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
I know that the National Police Service has contributed immensely to the success of athletics in our country by giving us top athletes over the year.
The scorching sun could not stop world 10,000 meter silver medalist and Rift Valley's Daniel Ebenyo-Simiyu, who is also the defending champion of the 10-kilometer senior men race, from stamping his authority in the race running from gun to tape to win the race in a time of 29 minutes and 51 seconds ahead of anti-stock theft unit Maybei Kiplimo, DCI's 2019 5,000 meter African Games winner Robert Kiprop, who settled for the second and third position respectively.
This is I've defended my title last year, and again maybe, I don't know what will happen in the nationals, but I am hoping for the best.
After the win, Ebenyo said he will not be going back to track after his dramatic encounter in the athletics Kenya 10,000 meters Olympics trials held in Oregon.